Welcome to Hardy Party of 5.5. We have such a cool episode today, but let's talk about villains. I have some of my favorite villains of all time, like Cruella is probably right up there for me, right? And I don't know, maybe Green Goblin. That was like one of the scarier Spider-Mans to me. I mean, he was just so intimidating. Also, the creepy metal guy from Terminator, what was that thing called?
The T-2000 or something like that.
He was freaky.
The one that could morph his body and all that.
Yes,
he melted and came back together.
Unstoppable. But today we have an even cooler villain than that. Probably one of your favorites.
Yeah.
Darth Vader.
We are talking to Darth Vader today.
I can't believe it.
So of course this meant Scuda had to do some research.
That's right.
So I looked up some facts about the original Darth Vader. This is back from 1977 when the original movie came out. That was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
I was born. I did see the movie. I saw the movie 7 times when it came out.
Are you serious?
I was 7 years old, and me and my brother went 7 times. I saw it 6 times. The 7th time it was sold out, so we weren't able to go in.
I saw it once, kinda, because I slept through most of it.
And you slept through it, yeah. Oh gosh. So Darth Vader, he starts out as Anakin Skywalker, and he is found on Tatooine, and he is supposed to be, because if you don't know the whole lore of Star Wars, there's Jedis and they're force sensitive, and the force is something that gives you power that's in the universe.
They're like moms.
Yes.
They're moms of the universe.
They have mom power, and they realize they have it, and then they kind of cultivate and train it. So they find Anakin, Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon find Anakin, and they decide he needs to be trained as a Jedi. Well, they think he's going to be the one, like in all these stories, like throughout history, the one that's going to bring balance. Yeah, the chosen one that brings balance to everything. So they think he's going to be that guy. Well, it turns out he ends up going to the dark side because his wife dies, and the Emperor. You're learning lots of things.
So does this mean their intuition was off? I mean, aren't they supposed to have mom sense?
You've got to look at if you look at the overall story, within the first trilogy, he does end up bringing balance to the Force.
Okay.
At the very end, but during his lifetime, he's a pretty bad guy.
Okay.
Pretty evil.
All right.
So ultimately, he does in a way that they didn't realize he was going to do.
Okay. Through
Luke Skywalker and his son and all that. So ultimately, he turns to the dark side because his wife dies. And he thinks learning the dark arts, he can learn how to bring her back to life.
What?
So that's his whole goal now, is to bring her back to life.
He's not Gandalf.
I think you're mixing up stories now.
Okay.
Okay, those are different universes. So when we did an Instagram post and we asked people what makes Darth Vader so scary, and a lot of people said the voice.
Yeah.
And you have James Earl Jones to thank for that.
Right.
So they brought him in to do the voice, and also it's the breathing. The breathing mechanism that keeps him alive inside the suit.
Yeah.
And you know how they did the breathing mechanism?
How?
It's a scuba regulator.
Oh, really?
And they just put a microphone in it, and they took the breaths off of that.
Well, that's not so scary.
Well, if you put it together with the voice, you have something scary. And see, that's where I go. What makes him so scary to me is he's part machine and part man. So you don't really know how much of the man is left.
Yeah.
So to me, that's what makes it scary, because the more he becomes a machine, the less he cares about anyone around him. So
I think that's true because, I mean, if you look at the villains even I just listed, with the exception of Cruella, who's just nuts crazy, well, I guess all villains are, the rest of them do have some kind of metal component. Like the Goblin is also a metal component. The guy from Terminator also has a non-human component to them. So that just makes them so more unpredictable, and then also they seem not just undestroyable.
Well, I think in a modern sense with computers and AI and all that, it probably taps into our fear of technology in general.
Yeah.
Is technology going to take over and we're going to lose our humanness?
Right.
So I think it taps into that too. So when George Lucas was creating Star Wars, the first character he came up with was Darth Vader. And his suit, his suit was really inspired by Nazi Germany, the Nazi uniforms. And then also the helmet was a samurai helmet.
Oh, it does look like that.
Yeah. And what's funny is he was only supposed to use that in space originally. That was going to be his space helmet when he was out in space.
Yeah.
And when he was in a ship or in a normal place, he was just not going to have a helmet on. But the helmet looked so cool, they kept it on him. So the first person that played Darth was David Prowse. And he got in a little trouble when the original series was out. Because, and thank goodness there wasn't social media then. In one of the interviews, he gave away the big reveal in Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, no.
The whole, I am your father. But it only got out a little bit because without social media and stuff, they kind of squished the story and it didn't get out to a lot of news outlets.
This whole entire series would have been a huge bust in today's day.
The biggest reveal in movie history.
Oh, my gosh.
So after that, he and George Lucas had kind of a difficult relationship because George didn't appreciate him doing that. So that's a little tidbit from the original.
Wow.
And this is another note. Star Wars was going to be a G movie, like rated G.
Yeah.
Until there was a test screening with the screeners in there. And a bunch of kids were crying when Darth Vader came on the screen. So they bumped it up to PG. Because at the time we didn't have PG-13. You were either G, PG, or R.
That's funny.
So they bumped it up to PG because Darth Vader was so scary.
He was so scary.
Yeah. So here's the crazy thing. In the original movie, he's only in the movie for 12 minutes.
That is nuts.
And he became like this amazing villain just from that.
That is so crazy. Well, our interview today is with Darth Vader that is in the new series Obi-Wan Kenobi on Disney Plus. He gives us a lot of insight to like some of the background of like the filming of that, how he had to get into that character.
He spent months and months and months getting ready for this.
Yes, and so his dedication to this character is like incredible. But not only that, he's really just a fascinating person.
He really is.
And just to give you a little hint, we didn't ask him about this in the interview, but the first thing he said when he got on was, I hope my voice sounds good for this interview because I've been practicing what's like sword swallowing.
With flaming swords.
And so
he burnt his throat.
The inside of my throat yesterday,
yeah,
casually. And now he was drinking a lot of water while he was talking to us. His voice sounds totally fine for the interview, and I think he's fine. But he has had a lot of injuries. It's how he's overcome these mentally, physically, emotionally. Like, he's such a fascinating guy. So we hope that you love this interview with Darth Vader.
So, Demetrius, we thank you so much for joining Hardy Party 5.5. You have such a cool resume, and I can't wait to hit all the high points and all the other points. I mean, Scott, you're so good at just researching everybody. But let's start at the beginning. So when you were 2 years old, you moved from Ukraine to Washington State. What was your childhood like?
Well, this is going to be kind of crazy, but I actually don't remember most of my childhood.
Really?
Because I've had 6 concussions.
Oh, gosh.
And, on my 6th concussion, I had amnesia for a little bit, and then I lost the entire year, and I forgot most of my childhood.
Oh my gosh.
That was about 7 years ago. Since then, I've been doing a lot of like memory, like really intense memory recovery exercises and different things to get my memory back. And the last couple of years, my memories have been coming back more and more. So now I remember fragments of my childhood, but a few years ago, I remembered absolutely nothing. So I'll kind of fill in what I remember. At 2 years old, I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
I think at that time, I had a career as an accountant. Accountants, I believe, but I may be projecting. No, I don't really remember much. We moved to Tacoma, Washington. So my family lived in Tacoma for 5 years, and then we moved from Tacoma to Spokane, and then I grew up in Spokane. I lived in Spokane for 17 years. As far as my childhood, I don't remember too much. I was really into computers, and I was an independent learner, so I could learn from books and doing tutorials.
Yeah.
And my brother and I used to carve swords out of wood and fight in the backyard. And that's kind of what pushed me here, was because I got to live that fantasy, but in real life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool to do that. Yeah.
So when did you know you wanted to have a career in like stunts and acting? Like
way later in life.
Okay.
This happened at like 18.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was I went on So You Think You Could Dance, and I did terribly. And it was aired
We
on
watched
TV.
that show too. Yeah.
Watch that too.
Yeah, and it was aired on TV, and I was humiliated. And yeah, and at the time I had just started breakdancing, so I continued breakdancing with my friends, and we formed a crew. This was immediately after the show, so before it had aired, there's about a 6-month window, and we were like, both of us did bad at the audition, and we're like, we're gonna get better. And we started dancing every day, and then another person joined in, and another person joined in, and eventually we formed a crew, and we started dancing, and then dancing became my life. So by the time it aired, I had already been breakdancing for about 6 months, and then a wave of humiliation hit me, and then I continued dancing even harder with aggression behind it, like I'm gonna show them.
Yeah.
All right.
And then I fell in love with it, and I fell in love with dancing, and I started teaching gymnastics, and then I started getting into theater, local theater at the community college. So doing a little bit of theater, a little bit of dancing. At a certain point, I was like, I want to find a career with these two passions that I absolutely love. I love performing, and I love the physicality of movement and just discovering what my body is capable of.
Yeah.
Because before that, I had no athletic experience. So everything was absolutely new, and everything was impossible. So the first time I did a handstand, I was like, oh my God, I did a handstand. The first time I did a flip, I was like, oh my God, I didn't know that was possible. And then I was on this journey of never having these experiences as a kid. So everything was novel. Everything was absolutely new.
Yeah.
And difficult and awkward and frustrating. And there's lots of injuries behind it. But when I realized that I could learn something and that I could move, I was like, I want to make a career out of this. And I didn't know what that meant. So I was like, I know the only thing I could think of is stunt work. It was the only thing. At the time, my acting was very rudimentary. I just started acting. I wasn't too confident in it, especially to go to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
But I knew that I moved really well. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get into stunt work. I'll figure out the industry, and gradually I will transition to acting.
Yeah.
That's how. And then right when I moved to LA, I got recruited in a circus school, like 3 weeks in. Yep. And then my life deviated because I was like, well, circus will enhance any kind of movement that I have. And it's a deeper understanding of flexibility and movement and everything else. So as I got into circus, I realized that circus was what I was actually looking for, not film.
Okay.
Because it was the perfect fusion of live performance and movement, and also the crew feeling of being part of a breakdance crew.
Okay. Yeah. So what, nobody's ever approached me on the street and said, I think you should go to circus school. What were you doing to make, like you said, 3 weeks in, you got recruited in circus school. What were you doing?
This is Los Angeles, and weird stuff happens like this in Los Angeles. One of those weird Los Angeles stories.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I was in a Starbucks. When my brother, it was with my brother, and we both moved to Los Angeles together, and we were both extremely poor, like extremely, extremely poor. We had no plan. I think I came with like $1,000, and that $1,000 disappeared really quickly with my first month's rent.
sure.
And I slept on a woman's couch, and my brother was doing a study abroad program. So we were extremely poor, and we wouldn't go anywhere. We would just do the bare essentials. But it was around Christmas time, and we got a gift card for Starbucks. We normally don't even go to Starbucks because we're from Washington, and it's kind of overrated.
Yeah.
Because we're over
I
it.
agree with you on that one.
We
Yeah.
agree. And it's also real expensive. We call it $4, but now we should call it $6 because it's $6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had a gift card, and we were both there, and we're just kind of goofing off in line, and a woman tapped me on the back of my shoulders and said, hey, I'm a director of a circus school. We're looking for strong men for our school to lift the women. We have a lot of women who sign up, but we need men as well to lift them. Have you ever considered doing circus? And at the time, I didn't know what circus was. And I was kind of uncomfortable with the whole thing. Not uncomfortable with it, but it was just a weird interaction.
You're right.
Yeah.
So I put the business card in my wallet, and I was like, okay, cool, thank you. And then I forgot about it, and 3 weeks went by. And then I met some girls on the beach in Santa Monica who were doing handstands. And I had done breakdancing before, so I could hold freezes really well. Not really well compared to circus, but I could hold like a handstand for about 25, 30 seconds.
Okay.
And they were shocked that I could hold a handstand. They're like, we should do a handstand photo. So we did a handstand photo, and they're like, we're training under this hand balancing teacher at the circus school. And I was like, I need a teacher for handstands. That's amazing. They're like, oh, I think I have a card. They pull out a purse, and they give me the card, and it was the same card.
Same card. Oh gosh.
What?
Yeah. And then I pulled the card out of my wallet, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, it's fate. And the next day I called, and I started training circus.
That is so crazy. That is
That's the story.
Because
That's
she
awesome.
even picked you out, like not even knowing it, you had any talent. You were just literally standing
You
up.
had no idea that I had a small gymnastics, breakdancing background, that had a small theater background. I was just a tall person who was goofing off in line at Starbucks.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
How tall are you?
I'm 6'7".
Oh, okay. Wow. Our boys are all tall, and my uncle's about that tall. So we have a lot of height in our family. I appreciate it. So what was circus training like?
Circus training is intense. Circus is the hardest thing you could do in the world.
Really?
I'm a little biased because I'm a circus performer, but
Yeah.
it just, you have to be superhuman. There's no way around it, right? And you're doing something that seems physically impossible. And you have to be so good at it that it's easy, that you could smile while doing it, while doing 10 shows a week, while sick, while hungover, while whatever. You still have to be able to perform. So imagine like going to the gym, doing your hardest set, and then at the end of the week, you still have to do your hardest set, and thousands of people are watching.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow.
You know, so like, the training is very, very intense. I had trained gymnastics before, and it wasn't, the circus training was at a much higher level than the gymnastics training.
Yeah.
Because you have to be super well-rounded. So everyone is required to train flexibility. So I trained contortion. Everyone is required to be strong. In the beginning, I didn't know what discipline I was going to do, so I trained everything. So I was doing aerial rope, I was doing trapeze, I was doing clown, I was doing juggling, acrobatics, partner acrobatics, pretty much everything there was, I was doing. And I was just, my body was constantly wrecked because I'm also an adult, you know, as I'm doing this. And gradually, your body changes with whatever demand you give it. So I started becoming more flexible, you know, my hips opened up, I started getting stronger, and eventually just becomes a routine. The training becomes a routine. And at this point, it's now such a part of my life that when I don't train, my body feels weird.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I absolutely love circus.
What part did you end up settling in? You said you didn't know what part you were gonna.
I ended up settling with acrobatics and juggling, but also I started with hand balancing, handstands.
Yeah.
And that's one of my disciplines. I have eight disciplines in the circus.
Oh, okay.
Gradually, as I got injured and as I got booked for different parts, it would change how I trained and what I focused on.
Yeah.
So I had a pretty severe injury, a shoulder injury. I separated my shoulder, and I was out for about 7 months. And I couldn't do partner acrobatics. I couldn't tumble. I couldn't do handstands. And then I started juggling to do something and to get blood to circulate to my shoulder while I'm juggling, something low impact. And then juggling became my main thing in Los Angeles to book work as I was struggling. So I worked as a juggler primarily. So I'm an acrobat, I'm a juggler, and then I spin staff, I spin swords, and I do Chinese pipe balancing.
Oh, goodness.
Yeah, I've checked out his Instagram, and he's got all the videos with him doing these
Doing all
different things.
I did a whole performance art piece for like 3 months, or it was like 5 months. I don't remember how long. And I shot it all backwards.
Oh,
It's a whole
okay.
3 hours long. It's a whole performance art piece of different music, different not costumes, but different looks, entire acts. But then no one watched them
Oh no!
oh my
because
goodness.
I realized that no one wants to scroll Instagram for 3 hours.
For 3
Right,
hours, yeah.
It's got to be a quicker,
Gotta be
faster.
quicker.
Yeah.
But I was ambitious because I'm like, yeah, I'm going to make a full performance. It gave me something to do. It was fun.
Funny.
Yeah.
So the most fascinating thing I've heard so far is that there's a handstand trainer, like a person that actually
Oh,
trains.
yeah. Yeah, I do that now. I teach handstands now.
You do? You just okay.
Do you feel like you can teach anyone a handstand, or does it have to be a certain body
I
type?
feel like I could teach anyone a handstand, but some people will have an easier time and some people have a harder time.
Yeah.
Based on flexibility, shoulder mobility, strength, courage.
Well, with your height, did you feel like, because you're pretty tall to be doing this kind of stuff, right?
I'm like the world's tallest. I haven't met anyone taller than me.
Yeah,
Who does the things
when I
that I
think
do.
circus and gymnastics, you don't think
You think
6'7".
smaller little
yeah.
people, yeah.
Yeah, it definitely was a lot harder for me.
Yeah.
And that's what pulled me towards it, because I've always been drawn towards things that were impossible.
Oh, yeah.
If it's easy, I don't want to do it. But if it's impossible and it feels like I can't do it, then that's the only thing I want to do.
That's gonna push you. That's
Yeah. So my thing, well, I'm known for being a really, really tall acrobat. And like one of my circus disciplines, rollabola, I'm the world's tallest person who does it.
Oh wow.
And I'm definitely one of the tallest hand balancers, in the world. There's not a lot of 6'7". It's hard. I have a lot of body. I weigh 250 pounds.
Well, yeah, just your center of gravity is so much different than most people that do it. Yeah.
And also, I started as an adult, so I didn't have any of the muscle memory. Everything was just awkward, and I just crumbled and fell and got injured.
Even if you did have the muscle memory, well, you forgot all that from all the concussions you got.
Well, actually, that was the only thing I remembered. That was the crazy thing.
Really?
When I lost all my memory, there was a time I went through a really dark, like 8-month period, because it wasn't supposed to recover. It was post-concussion syndrome. It was brain trauma. Essentially, this was the rest of my life. I couldn't hold relationships. I couldn't remember lines. It was really hard because I was in a show, and it was in Pippin, and then I took a break to recover. But we were doing week by week assessments, and when I came back to the show, I realized I didn't remember any inside joke with any of my castmates.
Wow.
I had forgotten the show. It had only been like a month and a half or 2 months. I'd forgotten huge elements of the show. I forgot the running order. And then I started paying attention and realizing that I was forgetting everything. Wow. And my memory was only lasting about a couple weeks. I'd have about 2 weeks of linear memory, and then the rest of it was stored in like the void. And I couldn't tell if it had been 10 years or 1 month. So if we had a conversation 1 month ago, and if we had a conversation 10 years ago, it would be stored in the same region of my brain. Wow. So it pulled from it. So I would always have fragmented conversations with people where I'd be like, remember last week you said this? And they're like, that was 5 years ago. And I was like, oh, okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
This is bizarre. Yeah. So I went through a whole depression and everything. I really went through a dark place. But in that time, what I realized was the one thing that I had was muscle memory. My body always remembered what to do.
Okay.
My mind wouldn't remember, but my body would remember. Right. So that's what kind of fortified me and had me double down in the circus and in physical training, because that was one of the things that I could hold on to. And also, it was part of my recovery, was constantly stimulating my brain and making it rewire itself. Yeah. So I started training my left hand to match my right. So now I'm full body ambidextrous, but I had to train so I activate both hemispheres of the brain to help stimulate recovery. So I was going on like this crazy, reading everything I could read. I was doing psychedelics as well to stimulate brain growth. Meditation, I was learning instruments, learning languages, just everything I could think of, but I would forget everything also. So it was like pouring water in a bucket with holes in it. I would constantly just dive into any information I find, but I wouldn't retain any of it.
Wow.
And then years later, what happened was I would just know things from stuff that I had researched and studied without knowing how I knew them. I just had the answers, and with thin slice, and I started relying more on intuition and more on thin slicing than actual memory recall.
Oh, wow.
And one of the bizarre things was I could start feeling people's emotions and their energy field next to me. It was like I took away the sense of memory, and in return, my intuition was so heightened because I was hyper present all the time, analyzing my scenario because everything was new all the time. Yeah. That I could start sensing certain people would make me uncomfortable. I could tell when people were lying. I'd have a feeling, so it really had me dive deep into intuition, almost like the Force. I started having like Force-like powers because I didn't have memory. Yeah. Bizarre.
Yeah, that is so crazy. So let's fast forward to one of our favorite shows, Face Off.
Oh, yeah.
You were a model on Face Off. So Face Off's a competition. People do.
It's makeup.
It's all kinds of makeup. And what are the things that they create when they make them? They call them something, like all the costuming and stuff. The people that build the things that you wear. And you're really good at that type of stuff, like making costumes. But anyways, you were an actor or a model on Face Off. So how did that opportunity become about? We love that show. We watch it.
We miss it. I wish it was still
I know. We miss it so much. Brilliant. How did you get to do that?
I don't remember. but so, you know who Doug Jones is?
I've heard that name, yeah.
He was in The Shape of Water. He was the aquatic creature in The Shape of Water.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He's a very established, I forgot the character he plays. He's in Star Trek right now. He's a very established creature suit actor. And I met him also earlier on in my Los Angeles career. And he suggested to me to get into suit acting. Yeah. So he was like kind of my mentor, and he suggested I get into suit acting. He said, you had a good build, you move well. And so that became my focal point, was pursuing suit acting. I realized earlier on that stunts for me was just a stepping stone. It was just what I could do at the time because I didn't have the other skills. So I was doing stunts, but in the meantime, I was taking workshops on movement, on acting, on clown, so that I could always just pass through it. So it's stunts at the beginning, but I was always planning on transitioning to suit acting. So somehow I got the opportunity for Face Off. I don't remember. Oh, I know. Okay. A circus director contacted my brother and I to do a circus episode, and we were doing a live performance in the circus episode.
Okay.
Yeah. And then afterwards, I came back, I think 2 or 3 more times, but I came back once more as a model. And then afterwards I had a deal like in my contract that I would only do featured things. So if it was like a small little acting bit or something featured, I would do it. But if it was just general model, I wouldn't. But yeah, it was a really great experience. It was my introduction to suit acting and being in prosthetics for long periods of time.
How was that? What's that like, sitting in a chair for hours on end, having people put stuff? I feel like I would be claustrophobic about it. I would be like, it would probably mess with me.
Yeah, a lot of people are. It's crazy how in the industry, you have to have a special mindset to do prosthetics.
Yeah.
You have to be okay to not be okay.
And you probably can't remember how long you've been sitting in the chair. So, you could just.
I can remember. Give me some Basically, I meditate. So I spend most of my time meditating. I'm extremely still. I get lots of compliments for not fidgeting or anything because I could just sit still. I could close my eyes and I could just be zen the whole time. So I enjoy the process now because I've done it so many times. I'm at the point now where I'm not a fan of doing prosthetics because I've done so many prosthetics.
Yeah.
I prefer to be in a suit or doing motion capture.
Yeah.
Just because it's less, because if we have a 7 a.m. shoot time, it means I'm called at 1:30 a.m. or at 2 a.m. before the rest.
That's crazy.
And then I get through for like 4 hours, 5 hours of makeup. And then when everyone else just got there and they're fresh, I'm already 5 hours in, half asleep, sitting. And then begins my day. And then when we finish, I have to do my removal also. So my days were like automatically would become 12 to 17, 18-hour days. It's rough. It's rough, but I enjoy the process of playing the character and really being under the makeup helps you find the character. It really helps you find the character. Yeah.
This is a logistical nightmare for me because I'm over 50. So my thoughts are, when do you eat? When do you go to the bathroom? When do you, like, from 1 a.m. to 7 a.m.? Like, I would be like, all these things need to be scheduled in my mind.
But it's an easy answer. You don't.
See, that's
you don't do any of those
over
things,
50. That's for sure a nightmare.
Yeah. Sometimes we have a team. We usually have a really, like, the better your team is, the better your experience is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the team, sometimes your prosthetics cover your mouth. Sometimes you can't chew. Sometimes you have fingers, so you can't use utensils. You have some kind of weird alien hand. So sometimes people have to feed you. People carry, like, for me, it's one of the funniest things because I'm so large, but there's always someone who holds my hand on set and always be a tiny woman, and she'll walk me through places because I can't see, I'm blind. The same thing happened for Darth Vader as well. We had our first AD, Catterley, would help me walk up the stairs. She would hold my hand and help me walk up the stairs. And you have Darth Vader being led by his hand.
Yeah.
Because you can't see. And once you're in the full thing, like, stairs are the bane of my existence. I've fallen down the stairs so many times, so you just can't see. And you have weird feet, weird boots, weird costuming. Yeah. So you have to have someone walk you up the stairs, lead you around equipment. Yeah.
That's
okay. So you mentioned Darth. So let's get into. Yeah.
He's going to talk to you all about Darth Vader.
So, what was the casting process like for Obi-Wan? And what was it like when I mean, this is like the iconic movie villain of all time.
Yeah, I know.
What was that process like? And man, what was that like when you found out you got that gig?
Okay, so I first heard through the grapevine that they were casting for a large suit that fought with the sword, iconic suit for Star Wars.
Yeah.
There's like, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 of us in the industry in our size. So I had a few people who were like, hey, just through the grapevine, there's this role coming up. You should look into it if you could find out about it. So I immediately started training for it. I started familiarizing with the content. I started doing some light sword training, just casually. And then out of the blue, I got contacted by the stunt coordinator. And it was the same kind of thing. He was like, hey, we're doing a show. It's going to be a suit. He's going to fight with sword. This is the kind of style of sword. I want you to shoot this scene that we have from Rogue One. And I knew what the character was already, but I couldn't say, and he couldn't say, because it's secretive.
It was the elephant in the room.
Yeah, so I contacted one of my good friends who has a suit that I fit in, and I got the full suit, and I contacted another friend who does VFX, and I shot an audition tape in costume with VFX in the suit.
Oh my gosh.
And it was supposed to be like secret, and I was like, in your face, here it is. and then I got contacted, and then nothing happened. Like 3 weeks, it was holidays, and nothing happened. I still continued training sword, but I didn't hear back, and I was like, ooh, I may have like kicked the hornet's nest.
Yeah.
I may have said too much. And then I got contacted back for my first audition, but they still hadn't confirmed the role. So they're like, nondescript role. We want you to do the scene, and we was over Zoom. So I did, I think, 2 or 3 auditions on Zoom. The final one being with the director and with the stunt coordinator. And then from there, I got invited to go in person to the studio, and I tried on one of their suits, and they wanted to do a walking test. The most specific thing was the walk. It was a very, very specific walk.
Oh, really?
And the reason behind it was like my first big homework assignment was because David Prowse had a very specific walk, and also what was established in Legends and in the video games is this very graceful floating like entity almost, which was different from what David Prowse had done. But over the years they'd updated it in the video games and the animated series, and they wanted to do a hybrid. They wanted to pay homage to David Prowse, to do it right, but also to update it to what has been established. And that was the walk. But the problem was everyone they were testing would have like swagger, or like a sway and everything. And the whole idea was this is an absolute master, and especially with Anakin becoming Darth Vader and not being a master, the whole mental thing is that I am a master, and I'm showing everyone that I'm a master. And the way I show everyone I'm a master is by having absolute control of my body and my posture and everything. So that was the homework assignment. We did the test with the walk, and I had a knee injury, a chronic knee injury. I dislocated my knee a couple times, 4 times. And
concussions.
I mean, I've wrecked my body so much, but I've also healed my body so much from everything. So we did the walk, and I had a slight limp, and then I requested a movement coach, and then I worked with a movement coach, and I practiced the walk for 3 hours a day for the entire year. So I've put in 1,000 hours of walking to give you that graceful walk that you see, that very iconic walk. And it was not only was that walk, it was different speeds of the walk, different versions of it, different stops and starts, so that when we were on set, whatever Deborah wanted, we could do. So that was the most important thing, was to give her exactly what she wanted and to pay the character justice, because we had one chance to do it. Darth Vader hasn't had that much screen time in the last 40 years. If
you think about it, even through the original trilogies, he's not in the movies much. Like 30 minutes, I think, total.
I think I'm in the movie as much, or in the TV show as much as he was in the movies.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
for him to be so iconic.
So when I booked the role, what happened? I was really excited for like 30 seconds. like 30 seconds. I was super ecstatic. My roommates and I, we all got donuts. We were super excited. And then it hit me really what I had just done. I had just booked the role for Darth Vader, right? And then I was like, oh my God, if I mess this up, no one will forgive me ever for the rest of my life. No one will ever forgive me.
Yes.
And I got hit with such a wave of anxiety, and I froze for 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, I was just like, I started reading some of the content. I didn't know how to approach the character. I started doing some of the movement stuff, started training swords, started doing the walking, but I didn't. I completely froze, and I got a bunch of anxiety. And then I contacted one of my friends who's a really big Star Wars fan, David Baxter. He's also a producer of Legion, and he. I taught, he didn't know the role, but he had played Darth Vader, and I had played Darth Vader for a short film. And I wanted to ask him, I was like, you know what? I'm doing this web fan movie, and I'm playing Darth Vader, which is why I borrowed your suit to begin with to do the audition. And I was like, I don't know how to approach the character. And I kind of was looking for a starting point. And he leveled down with me. He said, Demetrius, this is your character. He said, whatever I say is going to negatively influence your character. He's like, the way I play it is based off of me watching the movie and everything else. It sounds like you're going to have your own journey. He's like, you have to find this character yourself. He's like, but what I will do is I will tell you what my experience was, because I didn't have a cultural starting point for Star Wars, because I was 15 when I watched it first. And I was in an immigrant, conservative, Russian, Christian, like Slavic bubble. So I wasn't influenced by pop culture whatsoever. And when I watched it at 15, I had no cultural reference of what it was. So it was just a movie that I'd watched, you know, so it entirely different. So what he did was he sat down with me and he explained to me the feeling of watching Star Wars as a kid. I forgot how, I think he was 13 or 12 when he watched it the first time. So he was telling me the feeling of it and how culturally there was nothing there sci-fi wise to that level, and how the VFX were so new and how scary it was because there was nothing there. The dog fights and everything. And once he explained the mood and the feeling of it, and really the feel in the presence and the energy of Darth Vader, more so than like the imitating movements or things like that, but really the energy behind the character. Right. I was like, okay. And then he sent me off with his blessing. And I was like, okay, I now understand that I can't mess this up. And really what I need to do is have to really understand the character.
Yeah.
So then I was like, I made a contract with myself. I'm like, I'm going to go as hard as I possibly can for this. And if I mess up, and if in the end no one likes it and it's not what people want, I will tell myself that I did my best. Right. There's nothing more that I could do, and that was it. Yeah. And my best is circus best. It's a whole nother level. So for me, that meant I turned down work for 5 months, and I trained 10 hours a day for the role.
Wow.
Yeah, and I did everything. I studied all the lore. I first broke down Anakin. That's how I approached it. I started with Anakin, watched the originals, or not the originals, the prequels. And then I studied the character. I read a couple of the books, studied the lore, and I broke down Anakin as a character. And that's where I started. And I spent, I think, 1 month on just Anakin, as well as doing I was doing 3 hours of sword training. I was doing 3 hours of walking. I was meditating into rage. I was working with a movement coach. I was doing a lot, but I just broke down Anakin, studied Anakin. And then once I understood Anakin and found the parallels between myself and him as a circus artist, an acrobat, him being an acrobat, growing up very poor as an immigrant, him being a slave, and finding these parallels of training. And also I was trained by a circus master in Montreal. And he, when I was auditioning for this big circus school, all the other coaches said that I was a liability because I was born with a birth defect. So I had a twist in my spine. And they all said that I had a weak core and I was going to hurt myself and things like that, and that I shouldn't be taken into the school. And they were saying it in Russian, but I understand Russian. Yeah. And they didn't know that I understood Russian. It was like, they were so brutally honest. Like, they're like, he's kind of worthless. He's not good for circus. He's not strong enough. He'll just get injured. It's going to be a waste of time. And I'm here listening to everything being like, ooh, ouch. That hurt. He lobbied for me to go into the school. He fought for me the same way that happened with Anakin. Yeah. So I found so many parallels that I understood the character, and then I moved, and I had a knee injury, my dislocated my knee, so I understood what it felt like to move really well and then to lose everything. Yeah. To lose my identity as an acrobat, to lose my identity as a mover, So once I understood that and that transition into the suit, that gave me, and then from there I went further into the character development. So I was in the headspace for 8 months.
Wow.
But I was meditating. I was doing so many crazy things. I was meditating into rage, and I was learning how to...
Meditating to rage, what do you mean?
What's that mean?
So what that means is meditation is a tool, right? You could do anything with meditation. All it really is you focus your awareness on one point, you relax, and you breathe.
Yeah.
That's it. So what I was doing was I would find something and I'd fixate on it, and I would hyperventilate, and I would make myself mad. And more mad and more mad and more mad until my heart rate would accelerate, until my hands would start trembling, until it felt like I was about to lose control. And then I'd calm myself down out of it. And the calm down would take about an hour in the beginning, because literally it was almost the point of feeling like you're having a heart attack and your hands are trembling and you're about to explode. But I was in such a turbulent place because what I wanted to do was I wanted to be authentic with the character. And when we're on set, I need to be able to, Darth Vader only plays in extremes.
Yeah.
So if every time he's angry, it's like a 15 out of 10. Right. And I had to be able to get there really fast, but also come out of it really fast. Because in the beginning, I was exploding on everybody.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Going through my rage sessions, it was really hard to calm down. You know, like if something's bothering you and you have a bad day, well, imagine doing that every day.
Yeah.
So I was going deeper and deeper into rage. And towards the end of it, I could go really, really far into rage and into darkness and really into my own psyche, of like the darkest part of my psyche. And then I could calm myself out of it faster. But when I finished playing the role, I couldn't shake it because I'd spent so much time in that headspace. So I had a whole brutal, like 3-month journey of trying to shake the character after we finished filming.
Like a detox.
Yeah, like a spiritual detox. Yeah, for sure.
I hear that happening to actors a lot. Like when they play someone that's over the top like that, to be able to get back to your normal self is hard to do.
Yeah, I had read about it, but I'd never experienced it. I'd never been in the headspace for so long.
Yeah.
Normally, it's like I prep for a few weeks. I do the character, I drop it. This one was like, by the time I had gotten to set, it was already like 5.5 months in of just character, of just being in the character, visualizing the character. I was using a nebulizer, you know, so that I could feel what it's like in a Bacta tank.
Yeah.
I was chain smoking cigars so I could feel what it feels like to have my lungs burn, to the point that my lungs burned, and then I would sit with the nebulizer to relieve it, so I could feel what it feels like to lose everything. I was microdosing on psilocybin so I could go deeper into rage and feel my emotions deeper. So I was really going as far as, I mean, I was manic. I was at the point of going as far as possible, and that's why the character is where it's at.
Right. Yeah.
I did it right.
That's crazy. I've never talked to anybody that's so, like, you have so much control over not only your body, but also your mind and also your organs. I mean, like this, you're making your heart rate, your mind is putting you in this place. You have control over all your muscles. Like a lot of people might, well, not even a lot of people, some people might be good at one of those things, but just that awareness that you have of literally all of the consciousness.
Well, when I had my concussion, meditation was a huge part of my recovery.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, I started meditating heavily. And then when I had my knee injury was something that you couldn't rehab. It was the end of my career. It was my career-ending injury. And the doctor told me I would never run again. I would never jump. I would never do Taekwondo again. I would never do acrobatics. And I needed surgery, but it wouldn't fix it because it wasn't my knee. It was a birth defect that I had, which was a twist in my spine. So my pelvis was shifted. All my joints were slightly shifted. And he was saying, we're going to put a plate in your knee, but then your ankle's going to go, and then your hip's going to go. And if your body's just going to break. You're at the point now, because I was like 28. And I told him, I was like, I don't believe you. Yeah. And then I did, because Western medicine didn't have an answer, I went to Eastern medicine. And I did everything I could possibly think of to recover, because it was something that was impossible to recover. Wow. So I went really deep into meditation, into Tai Chi. I started doing rituals all over the world, different ceremonies and rituals. I did ayahuasca. I did a sun dance ceremony in Costa Rica where you dance for 6 to 8 hours a day without food or water for 4 days.
Wow.
So I was doing everything to the point where it was fanatical, because it was my life.
Yeah.
Acrobatics was my life.
Yeah.
I couldn't be an action actor anymore. I had to go back to a desk job. I still can't remember lines at the time, and now I don't have my body.
Yeah.
Everything that I've trained for is out the window, and I have to either accept defeat and be a broken person for the rest of my life, talking about, oh man, I would have had it if it wasn't for these things.
Yeah.
And that wasn't an option for me.
Yeah.
And that's when I got into meditation, and that's where I built the mental fortitude to just go when everything was impossible in front of me, to just move forward.
Yeah.
With conviction.
Yeah. Wow. That's really impressive.
Yeah.
A lot of people, especially younger than us, just don't have that grit and that drive. I mean,
you have to lose everything. You have to lose everything. It's only when you lose absolutely everything, and then you still claw yourself out, then you become proof.
Yes.
You know, now like nothing will shake me. Yeah. I know that if I lose my mind, I could lose my body. I could lose, because in that time I also lost all my money because I couldn't work. So I was all my savings went out the window. Yeah. You know, I was like upper middle class, and I went to like just struggling, getting by, trying to heal my body. So I went through the darkest parts of my life.
Wow.
And after that, when COVID happened and people were freaking out, I was one of the people who was a foundation for other people to keep them zen, keep them grounded, everything else, because I had gone through a COVID a few times in my life already.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I think being uncomfortable helps us. It helps us grow, and it also, I think, it helps our creativity. Because if you're not comfortable, you're not trying something new if you're not uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Growth requires change and discomfort. Yeah. If you're comfortable, then you're not growing.
Yeah, and you can't be as creative as you could be.
Mm-hmm.
If you're comfortable and just hanging out, you're not going to a new place. So, yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
So speaking of being in a new place, what was it like the first time you were in like the official Darth Vader suit? Like, how long did it take you to get suited up for that?
About 25 minutes.
Oh, okay, that's not bad. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. We had a team of 4 people. So I had a whole team of dressers who would help me suit up, but they'd also have lint rollers, constantly lint me, so it would always be pristine. And then they had fans. They were part of my cooling system.
Okay.
So they were cooling me between each take. I had a neck fan that would shoot air into the helmet, because also the eyes would fog up after about 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
So if we're doing, and we Deborah likes to do long takes. So we would do long takes, and you would, about 15 minutes in, I'm completely blind. I'm already blind because of the vision, but then completely blind, just fogged up, and I can't see anything. I'm just going off of muscle memory.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
So what did it feel like once you got in that suit for the first time? After all this hard work to get there?
The first time was interesting because it was I hadn't broken the suit in, and it was very, very, very uncomfortable.
Oh, really?
It was the suit had 8 layers, and one of the layers was a corset that we wore that would restrict our breathing, but it was like this vest that we wore, and it was attached to our pants and attached to the mantle. And the reason was because the character was so important that we didn't want any kind of fidgeting, any kind of movement. And if you do a force power, it pops the shoulder up normally.
Yeah.
And it looks bad. So we had it strapped down with like tight resistance bands to my pants in here. So the suit would actually pull you here into the slouched position.
Oh, yeah.
And you'd have to fight it to stay up here.
Okay.
So we wore it for the first time, and it felt it felt powerful because I'm wearing the iconic Darth Vader suit.
Yeah.
But in my mind at that moment, what I felt was a discomfort and understanding that this is the next 3 months, of this. And then we did a rehearsal for about an hour and a half, and both myself and the stunt double, Tom O'Connell, both of us were starting to feel pain in our back. And this was just the first time we wore it, and we're like, wow, this is going to be something.
Yeah.
We're on for the long run. So then I requested my movement coach to help facilitate my warm-ups and cool downs to make sure that I wasn't wrecking my body while doing it. And halfway through, I still had back spasms from the suit.
Yeah.
Because I had formed such a big knot in my lower back from constantly fighting the resistance to keep my back straight. But it also gave the proper posture for the character, because if you didn't have the posture, you would hurt your back.
Yeah. But I think that's a testament to part of your training, because I think that's a mental thing too, like figuring out how to put that kind of in its place so then you can perform how you need to perform.
Yeah. It was just another element. And the heat, the suit itself, the lack of movement. I'm really flexible, so when I put on the suit, I lose probably about 65% of my flexibility.
Yeah.
So it's like having full range of motion to having no range of motion. And that was part of what helped find the character, was understanding that's what Anakin went through as well.
Well, yeah, I was thinking that tension of not being able to move and fighting against the suit helps the tension of the character.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. It was great for the character. It's terrible for the actor playing it.
Oh, yeah.
Great for the character.
You realize you said had to fight against the resistance.
Oh, yeah, you caught that, didn't you?
Yeah.
I didn't even catch that.
You mentioned Tom O'Connell, who did the stunt work, like he did the fight scenes, right?
Yeah.
And then Hayden Christensen did the more dramatic acting and all that, like when the helmet's off, I assume.
Yeah.
So what was it like working with 2 other guys to bring this character to life like that?
For me, this is a normal thing. So you always work with a team.
Yeah, in the circus.
It was really cool. We all had our own individual focuses. I really, really wanted to fight. I really, really wanted to fight. So I was training sword 3 hours a day.
Who doesn't want to be in a lightsaber battle?
Yeah. And I did one day of of stunt training with the rest of the people, and they're like, be completely honest, how's your knee feeling? And I'm like, well, it's a little agitated. Like, okay, we're pulling the plug. Like, you're doing all the performance stuff, you're doing all the walking, you're doing everything else, and if you injure yourself, this investment of you doing 3 months of movement training is going to go out the window.
Yeah.
So then and there they pulled the plug, but I was like, I still want to learn sword because I don't want to finish this project and be like, yeah, I don't know how to fight with sword. I was Darth Vader, but I don't know how to lightsaber. So I trained myself, and I trained myself 3 hours a day. And I didn't know what styles they're going to do, so I just learned everything. I learned sword spinning, I learned the Japanese style, I learned some kendo, and I was just combining everything that I saw at the gym that I trained at. Anytime I saw something cool, I would ask someone, and I would learn, and I would fuse it all together. But I couldn't do any of the fast pivots and jumps and stuff like that without jeopardizing my knee. Yeah. So I did all static, like power poses, like lunges and doing cuts and stuff like that. But yeah, I taught myself sword. Tom O'Connell was in a separate group just focusing on the fights.
Yeah.
And he did just the fight focus. I don't know for how long, maybe like 3 months or 4 months. They just did the training and the creation of the choreography and the rehearsals and everything else. So most of the time we were all separate on set because we all had our own things. Tom and I wouldn't be in the same place unless there was fighting or stunts.
Yeah.
So most of the performance scenes, I was by myself doing all the suit acting. Mm-hmm. And then during the fights, I was only there to overlap. So I was only there to overlap transitioning from my performance to the start of the fight, and then transitioning the end of the fight to the start of my next scene. And then sometimes we'd do some fragments in between to get some like close-ups of like hero shots. Yeah. But for the most part, it was Tom, and even then, I wasn't really on set. I mean, I was on set, but I wasn't there present for the fighting.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So your first scene was this is like an iconic scene, it's like an instant classic. It's when you're going down Mapuzo in the street.
Yep.
So what was it? That's your first scene in the movie, like your first scene
in the movie. So that was
that whole scenario like.
That was, remember you were saying like, what does it feel like to be in the suit? That was when I felt my suit moment.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Because when I put it on the first time, I was in a rehearsal space with just Tom and with our movement coach Olga. So when I went there and I was in the suit, that's when I felt the reaction of everyone else, and then that's when it started hitting me how iconic it was. Because just being in the suit and walking by people would have reactions, authentic reactions.
Yeah.
And I'm 6'7", so I'm Darth Vader. So as I'm walking, I could feel it, and then also feeling the joy that it brought so many people. So many people came up to me, crew people, extras, stunt people, everyone, just to share their experience with me, and that helped me as well. But also one interesting thing about the suit is that because of the helmet and how it's constructed, I really can't hear when I'm in the suit, and I can't see that well either, right? And because it's like a fishbowl over your head, the only thing I could hear is the echo of my own breath.
Which is Darth Vader's,
Yeah, it really was Darth Vader. As I'm walking, all I could hear is my own breathing. And I realized how isolating it was to be in the suit, and also how powerful it was, because it felt like I was in my own universe contained, right? And everyone else was outside of it. So I was like in my safe zone, in my bubble. And it makes you feel extremely powerful and fearless, but also disconnected from everyone else.
Yeah.
Like there's everyone else, and then there's me.
Yeah.
In my zone, yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Because for people that haven't seen the scene yet, it's Darth Vader. He's looking for Obi-Wan, and he's walking down the street and just randomly like taking out like villagers, like that have nothing to do with it, which is partly to get Obi-Wan to come out.
Yeah.
But you think at the same time maybe he's. With Anakin, you're like, he probably is enjoying this too, because you talk about that power. The power he craves.
Yeah,
he's messing with people. So,
it was to showcase. I mean, it was like a transition into manhood, into adulthood. It was a rite of passage. It's when he comes back. Obi-Wan hasn't seen him for a very long time.
Yeah,
and now he's come back, and he is a master.
Yeah.
Not only is he a master, he also shows how little he cares.
Yeah.
Like, I'm completely untouchable. Nothing phases me.
Yeah.
Nothing phases me. I could snap a child's neck. Nothing phases me.
Yeah. It was so intense. That was just incredible. It was seeing Vader in this is the Vader that you've always wanted to see. Like they've
Thank
hinted at it in the other movies, but now you're really seeing who this character is. So cool.
It wouldn't have been possible without the work.
Oh yeah, months and months of work.
Yeah, a lot of it was, you can't really pick it up on your first watch, but a lot of it is extreme subtlety.
Yeah.
The character is so subtle until he's not. And the subtlety is what really makes it, is the seeing the breathing through the movement, seeing the aggression. There's a lot of very detailed things that you don't pick up, but you'll pick it up the more times you watch it.
Yeah.
So the level of subtlety to the character was the most subtle character I've ever played. And that was interesting, of finding the balance of mastering stillness while still being alive in this suit, and keeping the character alive while being still.
And showing that power through that stillness.
Yeah.
And Deborah Chow did such a great job of just the visuals of Vader. Just the flames hitting his helmet in one scene, and just it's just amazing artwork, really, if you look at it.
Yeah. Deborah Chow is incredible. She's my favorite director I've ever worked for.
Really?
Really, yeah. She's a genius. You know, it was really awesome to work with her. And also, this is such a huge project, right? So she was so busy leading up to it, and she would make time to rehearse with me and with the on-set voice actor Dorian Gregory. And she spent I think 3 or 4 times rehearsing with me. She's running from studio to studio, location, and she'd come by and just give me like an hour and a half to rehearse as I was finding the character. You know, and that was really, really cool, because a lot of directors don't have the time and won't make the time.
Right.
So she was really an incredible director, and also one of those directors where you could ask a question, you could have a conversation with, bounce ideas off of.
Yeah, you're working together.
Working together, yeah.
Yeah.
But also someone who has a very clear vision.
Yeah.
So the answers were always there. And it was, this is why we're doing this. This is how we're doing this. This is the mood that we're feeling. Yeah, she's like an actor's director.
Wow.
That's awesome. So you mentioned earlier not remembering lines, but didn't you memorize all the lines for Vader?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't remember them now.
Yeah.
I have short-term memory loss. So my memory now lasts a few weeks. Or like if I'm memorizing something, it might last a few weeks. If it's linear memory, it might be a few months. You know, right now it's about 6 months of memory. But then what happens is stuff just disappears. So it's not that I forget everything, is that it'll start slipping away into the void.
Yeah.
And then it'll become fragmented. But during my process, what I do now is I write really extensive notes.
Oh yeah.
So I have 2 notebooks of notes. Every rehearsal, I would write down everything so that I could come back and I could reference it.
Yeah.
Because I don't really remember memory. But yeah, what I would do is I learned the lines, then I forgot the lines, then I learned the lines, then I forgot the lines, and then a few days before we were filming the scenes, I would rememorize all the lines and all the movements and all the beats and everything, so that we could go on set and do it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you can't study that too far out.
No.
You can't be learning lines months and months in advance.
I mean, I do it months and months in advance, so at least it has some kind of scaffolding. So when I do it, it feels a little bit familiar, but it really didn't. It really was like, oh, I've never read this before.
Okay, wasn't there a moment where all 3 Vaders were on set?
Yes, there was.
What was that like? What kind of power was going on there on the set?
That's crazy.
Well, it was crazy because I was normally on my downtime, I'm meditating. So I was in this headspace the whole time, just like that's what Darth Vader does. On his free moments, he's meditating deeper into darkness, trying to heal his body and become powerful enough to revive Padme.
Yeah.
Right, that's the main focus. That's his whole thing. So I was meditating to the side, and normally I just stay in my space. And then I heard like chatter. You hear like people whispering, people are excited, and people are like really, really excited, and people are starting to crowd to this area. Right, this was when Hayden was entering.
Yeah.
With the suit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I was like, "What's going on?" And then I was like, "No, I'm just gonna keep meditating." And then it got louder, and people were getting louder and more excited. You heard some clapping. You know, you heard a lot of hush talking and everything. I was like, okay, I'm going to check this out. So I get up and I go, and Tom's already there, and I'm already there, and Hayden's there. And it was really, really powerful, because we all knew that this was history.
Yeah.
That was the thing, this was history. This had been 17 years since the last time Hayden wore the suit.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right? So there was that kind of power, but also, I'm Darth Vader as well, because I was playing in all the other suit scenes. So it was feeling me, Hayden, Tom, all 3 of us were there. All 3 of us because the last scene requires the three of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we were all three of us were there, and
Yeah.
that was a cool moment. That was also my first day meeting Hayden, because like Batman and Bruce Wayne, they can't be in the same room together. So all my scenes were scenes in the suit specifically, and all of Tom's scenes were scenes fighting or doing stunts. And this was the first time the three of us were all together.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
it was cool.
What was the crew's reaction like beyond being excited? Did you see some like fear in the crew too, like to see these?
I mean, that was such an emotional day for everyone, for so many emotions. There was a lot of excitement. There was a lot of excitement. We've been waiting for this for years. Yeah. For years and years. There was also the fear, because the suit is powerful and people are always intimidated by the suit, but to have three of them.
Yeah. So what's Ewan thinking? What is Obi-Wan thinking here with three Vaders on the set?
I don't know. You'd have to ask him.
That's crazy.
Get him on our
show. Poor Obi.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. And also it was interesting because we were all like, you saw, I haven't seen the show yet, but you saw the finale, right?
Yeah.
That was such a dramatic, we were crying in the crew.
Wow.
Everyone, I mean, it was the stillness in the room. You know how when you're watching a performer and they're completely in the moment, and you like even slow down your breathing because you don't want to interrupt their performance.
Yeah.
That stillness where you could hear a pin drop, you could feel the moisture in the air. It was that. It was like the entire place was like electricity.
Wow.
There was, Hayden showed up. We're all excited. There's three Vaders. Everyone is excited. Everyone, like literally all the crew had rushed in. That's what had brought me too. I snapped out of my meditation to go see what was going on.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know what's going on, but everyone is like freaking out.
Something in the force was showing you that you needed to go.
For sure that I had to be there. I had to see it. Yeah. And then once we saw the performance, and for me as well, because the parts that I was overlapping, I was in the same headspace too. I was in the character headspace too. So I was feeling everything. Hayden was feeling everything. Tom was feeling everything. The three of us were sharing the same journey. And it was a journey of like, this is the moment. And also leading up to this day, everyone was training like crazy.
Yeah, that's what
everyone was training. I was training like crazy. Tom was training like crazy. Hayden was training like crazy. So all of us were anticipating this one moment of the finale.
Yeah.
Showdown. And as we're getting closer to it in the script, everyone could feel the tension building, and I could feel the tension building in my character because I'm reliving the scenes building up to it. So there was so much anxiety and pressure and angst for all of us. Yeah, it was a very magic moment. It really was a magic acting moment on set.
That's what I was thinking. I was thinking all of you have put in this incredible amount of work. And so there's probably that type of intensity, also maybe a reverence towards each other of understanding we have all put in the work and we're all standing here together,
100%. Yeah. And it was also, but also we're all in the headspace of the character.
Yeah.
And this is in the headspace of the character. This is the final moment to become a master.
Yeah.
Like the character's been thinking about this for 10 years.
Right.
Yeah.
Becoming stronger and stronger to prove to his former master that he has become the master.
Yeah.
Right. So there's that anticipation, but also, how when you're in a scene, you kind of harmonize with someone, or when you're next to someone, they're feeling some kind of intense emotion. Well, imagine Hayden feeling that emotion, me feeling that emotion, and Tom feeling that emotion all at the same time.
Yeah.
So we're all synced up and we all feel this pressure.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
That's crazy. Okay, so you haven't seen it yet. When do you plan on watching it?
I'm going to Japan in a couple weeks to do the Broadway musical Pippin on Japanese Broadway.
Yeah.
Because I had such a difficult time with dropping the character, I had such a hard time. I literally had to crawl out of it. I was like borderline suicidal at the end of filming.
Wow.
Like that was the headspace and everything, and how far I had gone into character that time I finished, I didn't want to do reshoots. I had only felt right mentally for like a week.
Yeah.
Finally, I smiled for the first time in a year. You know what I mean? I lived a whole year without serotonin.
Wow.
So it was like, finally I feel right. And then we had reshoots and I was like, can Tom just do the reshoots? I was like, I don't want to go in that headspace anymore, because I realized how hard it was to crawl out of it. And it was it was really the aggression and the darkness. You know, there's a moment where you don't find happiness in anything.
Yeah.
And all I want to do is break everything, and all I want to do is fight everybody, and all I want to do is be aggressive, and all I want to do is put everyone in their place. And that's the headspace I was in, and I couldn't stop.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to stop. I had just been so long there that it was so hard. So when we went to reshoots and I had put on the costume, the suit first for the fitting, I was fighting the character because I could instantly feel, you know, because the suit itself is like a trigger.
Yeah.
Because I do a lot of my meditation stuff, but also the suit would help me find the character immediately.
Yeah.
So I put on the suit and I could feel the character coming back, like clawing back out. And I said, "No, you know, stay down. I don't want to work with you right now."
Yeah.
And then on the day one of reshoots, I put it on, and then I felt it. And the interesting thing was I put on the suit and I felt this storm in my solar plex, right? And it was rage. It's not even anger. It's beyond anger. It's rage.
Uh-huh.
And I felt it immediately start brewing. I'm like, "Oh man, here we go. Okay, we're coming back here again. This is the last place I want to be, is in darkness again after feeling good." You know, so, and the storm just kept on getting bigger and bigger, and I'm getting angrier and more pissed off because you use every little moment. So like the how uncomfortable the suit is adds to the anger, adds to discomfort, you know, a lot of things. So it's just swirling, and it's becoming bigger and bigger, and there's a huge storm in my chest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man. And this time, like, I'm just not going to fight it. I'm just going to experience it. Whatever happens, happens. And then there was this moment where I heard my own voice in my head. And the voice said, "I'm a monster." And then I smiled and I realized it was true, but it wasn't the character, it was me.
Oh, wow.
Because I'd found the parallels between me and the character and had went into my own darkness to really see who I am. And I understood that I am a monster.
Oh, wow.
And instantly it went shoo, and everything fell silent. And I had found the eye of the storm, the eye of the hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
So I found the void. And then from there, I was able to go in and out of character without doing anything. We had made peace because I realized that I was the character.
Wow.
Beforehand, it was like there's this aggro, dark version, and then there's me, and I would
And you've got to get there.
Yeah.
embodying back. And what I realized was I was both.
Right.
That even at the darkest level that I got to Darth Vader, where I got it at was actually me.
Yeah.
It was my own darkness, and that's what made me have peace with the character.
So instead of fighting each other, you became.
We became one.
Yeah.
And now we're friends.
Yeah. And now we're friends with Darth Vader.
Yeah, right.
So back to that, you haven't seen it, but you don't want to revisit it. Is that what you're saying? You're not going to?
I didn't revisit it now because I don't want things that are too triggering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, so what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to give enough space. It's in the beginning when episode 1 came out, I wasn't there at all to watch it.
Yeah, for sure.
I was like, I don't want to relive it because just like putting on the suit, I don't want to enter that headspace again.
Yeah, for sure.
And I also want to watch it and enjoy it. You know, so I figured I'd take some time off, and it's been nice hearing all the feedback from everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's been really good because then now it's making me excited. Now I'm not thinking about the experience and the emotions. I'm actually thinking about the performance.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So in Japan, I'm going to be working with a cast who I've performed with like 4 years ago. They're all friends of mine, so we're going to all watch it together, and it's going to be a beautiful experience.
Yeah. It'll be more of a celebration than you just sitting there watching it yourself. You know.
Yeah.
Make it a celebration. Watch it with friends, and not in the room by yourself.
Yeah, in the dark place. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've just got to tell you what y'all did was it's brilliant. It really is. I've watched each episode twice, and I'm going to go back and watch them again. And I'm telling you, y'all did something great.
And
Thank you.
let me tell you something.
I'm a very harsh critic.
He is a harsh critic.
You are who I was afraid of.
That's right. But you won me over.
He should be who you were afraid of. But look, listen. These are big words.
It was amazing stuff.
He knows the character. She knows the process, and so that's high praise. Big high praise.
Yeah, we bled for this. Like we literally bled for this. Everyone did. We knew how important this was for Star Wars, for the Star Wars history, for the canon. You know, this was there's lots of Star Wars projects, but this was a very special project.
Right.
Yeah.
This was the bridge. This was the bridge between the prequels and the originals.
Right.
We had one chance to do it. If we didn't do it right, then no one would forgive us. And also, it was history. This is, we were making Star Wars history. So all of us had knew the weight of this project, and everyone showed up accordingly.
Yeah.
So I was going hard, but just as hard as I was going, Tom was going just as hard, and Hayden was going just as hard, and everyone else was going just as hard. So when it just came out, it was a little hurtful because a lot of people it immediately got thrashed. You know, a lot of people were immediately tearing it apart. And you're like, you read the first chapter of a book.
Right, yeah. Give it time.
Establishes the characters. It's teaching you who the characters are.
Right.
And you're like, this is lame. Harry Potter's a wizard? What? He lives in a basement? How dumb is that? And you're like literally judging the whole series on the first chapter of a book.
Right.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I was like, give it time. We did it. We did a good job. We told a story. Every character has growth. You know, like that was the main thing. This is a very character-driven story. And Deborah Chow is very adamant about having growth to not make two-dimensional characters. Every character goes on an individual journey.
Yeah.
They really
But you have to allow the characters to go on the journey. You have to allow them to grow, to experience, to change, to adapt. And people were just instantly judging, on the thing. And I was like, come on, guys, give it some episodes.
Well, it's like the subtleties are what makes me want to go watch it again, like to view it over and over, to see these subtle things that were happening with each character.
You're catching something different each
Yeah,
time.
exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, we can't thank you enough, Demetrius, but before we go, we want to know about how your family is affected being from Ukraine with this horrible war that's going on, and how is your family?
Well, so this has been one of the heaviest human experiences in my life ever. It has been it was such a shock when it happened. And I'm half Russian, half Ukrainian. So I was born in Ukraine, and my dad is Ukrainian and my mom is Russian, though we lived in Ukraine. And so it feels like two parts of me are fighting each other.
Yeah.
And also I don't speak Ukrainian, I speak Russian, because that's the common language between everyone in the Slavic countries.
Yeah.
So I've always associated myself as Russian only because I didn't know the difference.
Right.
I'm American and I speak Russian, and people didn't know where Ukraine was, so I'll just be like, I'm Russian. And when it happened, it was such a painful thing because I heard my dad cry for the first time.
Wow.
He broke down because his two sisters live in Ukraine. My aunts live in Ukraine, and I have family in Ukraine, and I had never visited. I grew up here, and I had made a promise to my grandfather I was going to visit him before he died, and then he died when I was 18, and I never went. And then I was like, I'll go before I'm 30. But things would come up, and work and projects and injuries and things like that, and you just kind of put it off because it was always a place that was going to be there.
Right.
And then I realized that the Ukraine that was there doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
So when I go back, I will never experience Ukraine as it was.
Right.
And that was very hurtful. And then realizing that that's where my mind went when people are suffering, and I made it all about me, and it was all selfish about I can't visit there. And then I saw my own psyche almost, and that hurt even more. Where I'm like, wow, I'm a piece of garbage. And then the helplessness of not being able to do anything.
Yeah.
Of just watching people struggle, watching people lose their homes, understanding that these are regular people. And it's as if tanks would roll into Los Angeles one day and just start bombing everything. And soldiers would run in and ransack your house and take everything. Yeah. And there was nothing you could do, and being so helpless here. And watching the resistance as well sparked a fire inside of me because I realized I saw myself for the first time. I have always been this very resilient person that no matter how many times I get knocked down, I always stand up, always facing impossible odds, with my knee, with my brain trauma, with the meditation. I've always been facing impossible odds, but I've always been the only one.
Yeah.
And then when I saw Ukraine as a country, watching the country stand up, and I was like, oh, I am Ukrainian.
Yeah.
I see myself. I understand myself, and that was a very powerful moment to have cultural ties, because before that I was American, and I still am American, but I'm Ukrainian American, and that meant something.
Yeah.
Right. So I still go through waves. I try to do as much charity and fundraisers as I can and raise awareness. It's a very painful thing because these are humans.
Yeah.
And also it's painful because I have so many friends in Ukraine who are circus friends, but also in Russia as well.
Yeah, you
And
have both sides that you're.
yeah, and I trained under I trained under a Russian grandmaster,
Yeah.
and he taught me for free. He's like a father to me, and he lives in Moscow, right? So I can't hate Russian people,
Right.
and I can't, so there's no, and a lot of people at this time, they would project all their angst and frustration and hate. They projected to the nearest thing around them, so it created all this xenophobia against Russian people when the common people had nothing to do with it.
Right.
They're not the ones with tanks or anything else. It's part of a big machine. The same way that people protested Vietnam, and the people who were protesting Vietnam felt the weight of the war and didn't want people to suffer and die. And they felt the responsibility of America going to Vietnam, but they also couldn't do anything.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's that same kind of feeling in Russia,
Mhm.
in Ukraine.
So are your aunts okay? Are they?
They've evacuated.
Okay.
I believe we still have one aunt left in Zaporozhye.
Yeah.
I think, I'm not sure. But they've evacuated to Turkey and to Israel.
Okay.
Cousins, yeah.
Wow.
But I think the aunt that stayed was saying that, where am I going to go?
Yeah.
Like, if you imagine you had to leave right now, and they're like, okay, you're moving to Nebraska. That's it. And then you just show up to Nebraska with whatever you could carry,
Yeah.
and you don't have money, except in Nebraska, they speak a different language.
Ah,
Yeah.
It's a different country, a different language with absolutely nothing, zero connections. And to be a refugee means that you're sleeping on the floor in a convention center,
wow.
or sleeping in the bleachers of a gym at a high school, or wherever people could house you. And
Yeah.
now you're essentially homeless. You're living in a homeless shelter.
All right.
Nothing, and there's nowhere to go back to.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's a really crazy experience, both to empathize and to see how fortunate I am to have grown up in America, because if I was there, I'd be killing people right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's
Wow.
a very heavy experience.
Yeah, for sure. Well, our thoughts and prayers are with your family and you and your family as you process and work through that. And I'm so impressed with you. I mean, goodness, who gets to do all the things that you do? I mean, such a cool thing. And I think just a testament to your drive and your grit, like we said before, and how you've just persevered through so much. And we are so thankful that you just spent so much time with us today, sharing all the ins and outs of Darth Vader and the circus and everything that you've just been a part of. I'm so impressed.
And I'm just glad you didn't force choke me. So that's good. Oh gosh, I shouldn't have said anything. Oh no. No, it's been totally fascinating. We thank you so much for your time. And it's been great.
Yes, I know.
Awesome conversation.
He's going to be on cloud nine all
I really
day.
am. This has been great.
I had a blast. Thanks for reaching out.
Yeah,
man.
thank you so
Keep
much.
watching the series. You're gonna find more details. So the whole series has Easter eggs, and it's very subtle and very smart. If you pay attention to the details, there's a lot of details.
Yeah,
Yep, I definitely will be watching
he
it
will
again.
definitely be
Yep.
doing it over and over, I bet.
Yep. Okay, Dimitri.
Awesome. Good chatting to you guys.
Thank you so much.
Take it easy.
Talk to you
Rebecca,
later.
who knew that Darth Vader was going to be such a nice, likable, awesome guy?
That's right. He really was.
I know, and I love his grit and determination and how he just leans into the impossible to achieve his goals.
That's right. I mean,
So
that's
cool.
something like every generation can take away, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And this has made me so thirsty. I
Oh,
think I
yeah.
need a drink. Oh, yeah.
Hardy Party of 5.5. Over and out.
May the force be with you.